Welcome to the session 11 for the course of AutoCAD Essential for Civil Engineers. So this is a very interesting session, and here we will be starting up with a new process in AutoCAD, that is 3D modeling. So in the previous sessions you have worked on 2D, you have worked on layouts, elevations, sections and other thing. But here it's a very interesting session where we will be talking about the various concepts of creating 3D models, creating isometric model views, creating perspective views, camera views, rendering, and a lot of things till session 12. So in this particular session, we'll be starting with the 3D modeling concepts, understand the 3D space, know about how we can change the user coordinate system to work in a 3D model, understanding coordinate systems in 3D, create 3D models, and various other things. Now, before we start with the 3D modeling, I would like to tell you that the 3D modeling tools are available only in the AutoCAD full version. The 3D modeling tools are not available in the AutoCAD LT version. So again, it is very clear, if you're using an LT version, you would not find the 3D modeling tools in the LT version. Now let's see, we start with understanding the various concepts in the 3D modeling space. Now, use of 3D models. Now in 2D, we are only able to visualize the plans, elevations and section. But in 3D, the real model can be visualized. For example, you can see a feature over here where the 3D model is created. It can be only visualized from all the three direction, that is the X, Y and Z. And this particular model is having a depth as compared to a 2D drafting. So 3D modeling is something very interesting for civil engineers, architects, designers who wants to visualize the end product, how it is going to look like, how my building is going to look like, how my structure is going to look like. It is basically, and then extract various kind of information there. But for in AutoCAD, we can model a building, we can model an element, we can model a structure, and so that easy communication can be made between different stakeholders, so that the actual end product is easily visualized and can be seen how it is going to be modeled or constructed or manufactured. Now, coming back to it, let's come to AutoCAD and then we start with different kind of 3D models. So 3D models are basically classified into various kind of models. So wireframe model is just like you're creating a 3D model with the help of lines. So you can see that this is a wireframe model. There is no surface, there is no solid into it. It is not solid, but it is a wireframe model. So wireframe models are basically drawn with the lines with the help of. I'll show you some example. Then we have the surface model, that is the mesh model. The surface model is basically created of various lines. So when lines are joined together, they make surfaces. And then the actual model is the 3D solid model, which is basically the solid which is having a mass. So the three classifications of the model that you can see over here is the wireframe model, the surface model, and the solid model that you can see in the screen. Apart from that, the 3D space consists of three axes, that is X, Y, and Z. So if you have a right hand thumb rule, go with the right hand thumb rule. The thumb shows the X axis, the other finger you can see over here is shows the Y axis. So, and this shows the Z axis. So obviously, if you are basically supposed to see where is your Z axis, just put your thumb towards the X axis and the other finger towards the Y axis and the third finger towards the Z axis. It will always show you the direction of X, Y, Z axis wherever in the space. So you can see this is the plus X, plus Y and plus Z. Similarly, while we are rotating an object in a 3D space, so the thumb shows the axis of rotation and the other finger shows the direction of rotation. So we will be seeing that how it works. Now let's jumpstart with the basic tools like the view cube, the viewpoint, the steering wheels, and various other visual tools that will help you in order to work in a 3D space, and the workspace that we are going to work. Very, very important is the workspace. So while you're working in a 3D model, while we are working on a 3D view, you have to change your workspace. So how do you change the workspace? How do you start working on a 3D? Let's jump start to it. So here we have your AutoCAD screen that you are working into it. So this screen is basically set to work in a 2D drafting environment. So if you, and you can see that the various tools in this workspace is basically pertaining towards to drafting 2D layouts, 2D drawings, make 2D drawings. So now for creating 3D models, AutoCAD has given you a different workspace to work into it with different tools. Now to change that workspace, you have to go to the workspace switching option, and then you have two options. The 3D basic option, which consists of some basics tools of 3D modeling, and the 3D modeling tool, which consists of some advanced and basic tools for 3D modeling. So now let's go with the workspace and the and see how the tools are here. So here in this 3D modeling workspace, you can see the ribbon is having a different set of tools. So you have this 3D modeling tab. So in this 3D modeling tab, you have the modeling panel, you have the mesh panel. So in the modeling panel, you use various tools to create 3D solid models like extrude, loft, revolve, and sweep. These are the concepts of 3D modeling. Similarly, if you want to create some primitive objects like box, cylinder, cone, sphere, pyramid, you can also use these tools. Similarly, if you want to create some mesh objects, you can always go with the mesh editing tools or the mesh tools. Similarly, if you want to edit a 3D model, you can use the solid editing tool, and you have the sketch tools, and there are various tools. And this solid panel consists of the tools for the solid modeling. As discussed, some of the tools are present here itself in the 3D modeling tab, but solid tab, there are different kinds of. So we have these various tools like the solid in the solid panel, you have various tools for solid modeling. In the surface tab, you have various tools for surface modeling. And then for the mesh, and then the visualize tab, in the mesh you have various tools for mesh modeling, as well as like the mesh box, like the smooth object, and other things. In the visualize panel, you have various tools related to rendering like lights, like creating materials, and then you have the UCS options, and a lot of things are there in the visualize tab. And then the other are some of the common tabs that are present in the 2D workspace. So let's see about other things in the 3D model space. Now you have this X and Y. This is very important because this is the UCS. We call it as users coordinate system. When the UCS is at the default position, it is called the WCS. That is the world coordinate system. So we will be discussing more about it. But let us see the main tool to change the view and work in the 3D space is the view cube. So where we get this view cube? So you can see the navigation bar over here. If you close this, to get this navigation bar, go to the view tab, and here we have the navigation bar tool. So if you click into it, the navigation bar is displayed, and then you have the view cube. Now this view cube is an interesting tool which is used to change the view in a space. Now here, if you look into it, the view cube is showing top, north is the direction, east is the direction, south, west. The north is directing towards the y-axis, east is directing towards the x-axis, south is directing toward the negative y, and so on. So if you want to have the 3D space active, click on the default icon of the view cube. Now you can see the x, y, z. Three axes are visible in the screen. Now here, as we discussed about the various concepts in 3D modeling, we have the wireframe modeling, we have the surface modeling, and we have the solid modeling. So we would be starting with the wireframe modeling, and we will start with the concept of coordinate system. Now here, before that, here also you can see with the view cube there is an icon called WCS. So If you click on the new UCS, you can create a new UCS, but we're not going to do as of now. So let's put this default position over here and let's understand about the various coordinate systems that are available in the 3D space. So in the 2D, we had absolute and the relative coordinate system. In 3D also, we will be having both the system, but the difference is here we will be inserting the third axis, that is the Z axis, while we are defining the coordinate or when we are defining the angles and the other things. Now let's see what are the coordinate systems available in the 3D space. So the absolute coordinate system. Now you can see over here you have the origin. So here the origin is the x, y and z, where all the three axes meets is the origin. Now in the absolute coordinate system, you define a point with the three axes. For example, let's say if I define a point, I start with a line because we don't have any different commands, so we draw a line. In fact, so I want to draw a line which starts from 0 comma 0 comma 0. Now x 0, y 0 and z 0. So we are putting a first line point with x 0, y 0 and z 0. So press enter. Now the line starts from the origin. Now if you want to draw a line in the x axis, let's say 5 units in x, so we say 5 in x, 0 in y and 0 in z. So a line of 5 unit in x and 0 unit in y and 0 unit in z is created. Now if you want to create a similar line but in the z axis of 3 units, you would say 0 in x, 0 in y. Now you can define the third axis, 3. So now what happens if you define this line as 0 comma 0 comma 3? So the line goes at the third axis.